Hey, good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Burns, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly online event where we cover anything that may be of interest to librarians across the state and across the country. We do these sessions every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. They are free and they last about an hour, give or take. We do record all of our sessions as well, so all of our previous NCompass Lives are available on our website if you want to go back and watch and listen to any of them. And we do all sorts of things here on the show, presentations, book reviews, mini training sessions, whatever we can come up with. And we have sessions done by Nebraska Library Commission staff, and we have guest speakers, as we have this morning. On the line with us, we have Amy Mather, who's from Omaha Public Library. Hello, Amy.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. She is here remotely from up in Omaha, only an hour north of here, but we have the ability to just bring people in from wherever, so we do. And she's going to share with us about making the library matter in your community, how to reach out to those people that you're trying to get interested in it. So I will just hand over control to you and take it away, Amy. You can introduce yourself and everything. I didn't really do much of a job of that, but
no, that's fine.
Who you are,
Thank
what you do there,
Krista.
everything.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Amy Mather, and I serve currently. My job title has changed a few times over the past 6 months, but now I am in the role of adult services and programming and the manager of, we have 12 branches here, so I oversee all of that. So and I've worked here for 4 years. Before I was in this role, I was a technology librarian here at Omaha Public Library. Before that, I worked for ProQuest for about 8, 9 years, a long time. So it was quite the switch going from vendor to public libraries, but I realized that I absolutely love working in the libraries. So my presentation today is about contextual outreach, which I will explain sort of what that means to me and for the libraries and for the community and how we make the library matter. So going into the first slide, I'm going to be talking about the agenda, and please feel free to ask questions throughout. Crystal will be helping me field those. To the agenda. So I am very interested in the community, and especially it's like how we position ourselves within the Omaha community. So I'm always kind of trying to figure out how to angle the library into people's pieces, basically. So today I'm going to be talking about who are we not reaching. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about vibrant communities. We're going to be talking about sort of the Omaha Public Library strategic planning process, where we realize that the library, what our role needs to be is like library is linchpin, which I will talk about that. Marketing, re-engaging your community, contextual outreach in the future of libraries, and the big picture. So Michael Sowers actually sent me an article about 3 years ago, and I still kind of refer to this because I have a huge interest in sort of the young professionals, and I serve adults, so that's sort of my main focus. I think libraries do an excellent job at programming with teens, children, senior citizens, but we probably fail. And we do fail, actually, at serving people who are like me, between 20 and I'll say 45-ish, because I am 44, and who don't have children, who are single, who are in relationships. But if you ask these people about libraries, they have extremely fond memories, and the first thing that comes to them, if you say, I work for the Omaha Public Library, they're like, oh, I love the library. I used to go there when I was 8. And that's the problem. We need to change that reaction to say, I go there every day, I just picked up a book, I just went to an amazing program, but they have amazing memories of the library when they were 8 years old, and we need to sort of fill in that gap. So the patron exodus, this is an amazing article, and it's called Don't Forget About Us, is that these 20 to 40, or between 20 and 40 years old, we need to be thinking about what to do to reach out to that community. So we know that they continue to frequent, and I think about this community all the time, and actually think it's evolving, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. They all still go to coffee shops, and these are just the coffee shops in and around Omaha. They definitely go there. They work there. It is their kind of co-working space, if you will. So I'm going to also talk about that as futures of libraries. And new community workspaces. So this is actually a co-working space in Omaha. It's called Camp. And it was developed by this amazing creative individual in Omaha. I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide. Her name is Megan Hunt, and she is an entrepreneur and a pretty vibrant one. And so she created a Camp co-working space. So this is what I think about libraries' role is too, is that we need to be involved not only with other people's co-working spaces, but we also need to create our own. And this is a picture of her and her daughter, which I think they're just completely adorable. And this is the kind of things that they do in their co-working space. Silicon Prairie News is an entrepreneur startup in Omaha who focuses on the technology industry, and they had a Omaha startup job crawl in this co-working space. So pretty amazing stuff, and you could see by the crowd there it was pretty popular. But one of the things that is a problem is that we weren't there. And what the libraries have, we have resources on jobs, and we have amazing resources. So we need to make sure that we are part of that community. And we also know that people also still seek out like intellectual entertainment. Here we have DOMA, which brings in national speakers. We have a community playhouse. We have Film Streams, which is an independent film theater that shows amazing films. They go to First Friday. They do pub quizzes, which is really popular across, the United States. Art on Tap, Joslyn Art Museum. They go to Science Cafe, which is a very unique program that's out of the University of Nebraska Med Center, where they ask their professors to go and talk at a bar about their kind of whatever their field of study is. It's actually quite interesting. Laureates and Gardens and their programming. And again, Silicon Prairie News, I talk about them a lot because I think they're 4 years in, as far as our creative movement into Omaha, and they are, I feel like they're kind of like our Bill Gates of the community because they're bringing in huge names, speakers, they are the entrepreneurial kind of vibrant circle of Omaha. So it's important for me to kind of connect to these two. And so one of the things that they did, they hold this conference every year called Big Omaha, and it's an entrepreneur conference. And most people, I would say most people who work in the library would say, librarians would say, there's no reason for me to be there. That's not a library conference. And my reaction would be, is like, you have every reason to go to this conference because you need to figure out what's happening in this circle and figure out how we can connect to them, because I think it's really important. We know we have a lot of information about what we do very well, but there's some things we have no information about, and this is kind of my kind of passion to sort of reach out to these people. So Gary Vaynerchuk, who is the wine guy, wrote this book called The Thank You Economy. And what changed me as far as like really thinking about library services and reaching out was we all know that there's this information overload. There's just everywhere, and we get information through email, we get information through Facebook, social media, Twitter, journals, articles. We're overloaded beyond belief. And Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this, and he says, the user-generated content has changed the game, and it's no more, any more context is more important than content. And we know this, even though if we only sort of know this, and because think about when you market services to somebody. So I could go out and say, oh, the library's wonderful, we have books, you should go check out our new releases. Well, that's fine. That's content, but it's not really meaningful to them. So instead, I kind of sit back and think about what these people's needs are, and then instead of if they're really into music, then I say, we have the Free Gold database, and you could download 3 free songs. So think about what you can market to them that is meaningful If they are a crafter, you could talk about a brand new book that came in. If they are a business person, you could talk about a new book that we just got in this new amazing book. But make it meaningful to them. And and you could do this in a variety of ways. You could do it person to person. You could do it through Pinterest. You can do it through lots of different ways. So I'm going to talk about that. But I do want to talk about vibrant communities. I think Omaha is going through this huge cultural, creative kind of surge, and it's kind of interesting to sort of be a part of and also observe. And I went to the Young Professional Summit 2 years ago where some amazing people spoke in and around the community, people who I respect and think they're amazing. And they talked about what vibrant communities are. And I actually love this definition, and I think anybody can adopt this in any city. So vibrant communities, and also I'm going to talk about vibrant co-creators. This is a friend of mine, Ryan Wade, who I met during I went through a leadership program, and he kind of talked about finding those people who are your co-creators in your community. So he said it's 1/10 of 1% that are your co-creators in your community. So for Omaha, that meant about 500 individuals who had a vested interest in their community. And this came from, and I'm not going to say his name right, Peter Kejayama, and he wrote a book called For the Love of Cities. And it's fascinating. It was a fascinating talk. I actually haven't read the book yet, but I read his blog and I follow his Facebook, and I have the book on my list. But what I want to get to is that I think that everybody has these people in the community. People want to love their community. So in order to love their community, the library has to be involved. There could be all these other great cultural organizations in your community, but we need to make sure that we're part of that. So 6 components of a vibrant community. So they listed physical capital, social capital, and this is an actual talk, so I actually got all of this. I sat in on it and I was blown away. Cultural, financial, environmental, and human capital. So physical capital, they named organizations in and around Omaha. So they talked about Restore Omaha, which really focuses on organizations that are that want to help people restore their houses that are pre-1950s, and they do architectural tours and all this. It's a great organization. Neighborhood associations, also part of that physical capital. I think we have like over 200 neighborhood associations. Habitat for Humanity, Omaha by Design, and Emerging Terrain, which is a really amazing landscape architecture kind of design organization. So social capital, again, they talked about your neighborhood association, your local faith community, the Community Bike Project, which, people come and volunteer and then they get a free bike, and common community development, which works, purely to sort of re-engage neighborhoods and the community within the neighborhoods. Loom, which is an actual nightclub that does more programming than I've ever seen, and amazing programming. It could be from anywhere from like women's, during celebration of women, they'll do movies and talks and whatnot. So just amazing stuff. Cultural capital, they talked about Connecco, which they bring in speakers and have huge programming throughout the year. TEDx Omaha, which started about 3 years ago. Project Interfaith, Kent Bellow Studio, Metro Community College. Financial capital, they talked about the Omaha Community Foundation, which funds, local organizations for projects, family housing advisory services. And environmental capital, Green Omaha Coalition, Omaha Healthy Kids, Flatwater, which, all environmental stuff. But, and human capital, again, Literacy Center. We have tons of organizations in our community. Nebraska AIDS Project, a partnership for our kids. But what was missing? So they named they went through all the physical, the environmental, the social, all that, but they failed to mention one thing, and it didn't actually occur to me until about 6 months later when I was going through this. They didn't mention the library, and that's a huge problem. So we need to make sure that we're always going to be on that list. We should be everywhere. So that's what we need to fix. So libraries, linchpin, and long tail. So what this means to us. So leverage. What is your return on investment outcome? So what we know, what we need to do is be more proactive and less reactive. For example, when e-readers took the big boom a couple years ago over the holidays, we had to scramble to have all these classes on like how to use your e-reader because we weren't really watching the market and what was happening and being proactive to programming towards that. I think instead we're more reactive kind of organization. And then we look at patron versus communities and look at the pulse. Like, we know that there's all these different communities within Omaha, and we got to figure out what these communities, what we need to serve them, and as patrons as individuals. So that's thinking about communities as the linchpin. Like if you think about all those organizations that I just talked about, the Omaha Library needs to sit right there in the middle because we can serve every single one of those communities, every single one of those organizations, from the Literacy Center to Green Omaha Coalition to Loom. It doesn't matter. We can be a huge part of who they are. And then we can also serve the individual patrons. So we got to think about, what we can do to reach out and also what we can do to be like right dead in the middle. And we also need to think about strategic alliances and partners. One of the things that we know that we have, that we need to think about working more smartly is like we need to partner with organizations because we have computer classes here, but so does the Literacy Center, and so does this other organization, and so does another organization. So we kind of feel, this is our job, is to sort of figure out and partner with these people to make sure that we're all serving, we are all serving the same people, but making sure that we work together so that we're not duplicating our efforts. And that could take years into like building that, but it's still something that we're working on. So market segmentation. So we've, over the past couple years, we worked on a strategic plan, and we are rolling it out. And one of the things that we really are looking at is market segmentation. And this is sort of to help us to identify where the areas of like non-library card holders and why. So with that, we use this service. We have a database called Business Decision, and it looks at tapestry segmentation. So it kind of classifies neighborhoods into segments. So when they came and actually crunched our data, which took a while, they had to get all of our library card holders' information, and then they crunched it against the census data. And there are 65 segments altogether in this tapestry sort of profile. And Douglas County, which Omaha is in, has 42, which is quite high. And the top 8 segments account for just over half of the population. So that's something we need to look at. So we're going a little bit more about that. So tapestry market segmentation, like for me, the people that I'm interested in is the 20 singles couples organized by life stage. So we have young and restless, which is 22%, old and newcomers, which is 11%, the metropolitans 3.8, and college towns 2.5. And also another tapestry market that I'm looking at is the enterprising professionals 6.1, in style 1.5, laptops and lattes 3.2, and metro renters 1.8. Now this might seem low to you, but these people are actually on the rise. So in Omaha, and so these are the young professionals, the adults, the people that we forget about that I'm trying to market to. So this might be a little hard to read, but this is sort of just a color map of like where these people reside. So you can see my little arrows pointing at 20 singles couples, and they're kind of spread throughout the city, but they are not actually out west. They kind of reside more east of what we call 72nd. It's like either east or west of 72nd. And then single couple professionals are again spread out. And the numbers that you see there, you see 4, 7, 1 through 12 is where our branches are. So not only does it show us like where we need to build more libraries, but it also shows maybe like what kind of programming we need to really build for that library system, because maybe we think that there's not a lot of young professionals in the area, we don't need to program, and we could be wrong because we just haven't provided it. So this is just a little bit more of a close-up of all of that. And this is sort of a description of who those tapestry segments are, which I think is really hilarious. But every time you swipe your card, people are getting information from you, and then that's provided in all this market segmentation. So, for example, enterprising professionals, number 16. It shows that they're upper middle. Their average age is 32.4. They have some college, bachelor's, graduate degree. They like to jog, bike, practice yoga, have personal education loan, use internet frequently, read computers, magazines, and own, lease a Honda. So very interesting data and very specific. And we can even get to a little bit more, look at the young and restless, and it kind of gives us kind of a user profile who these people are. So when we look at this, like young and restless, they read magazines, they look at music magazines, business publications. These are the people that maybe are interested in those type of resources. So we never want to talk about story time to them because they don't have an interest. They think it's lovely, but maybe we need to really think about what we're talking to these people about, because it may be your love, but always think about your audience. So some ways that I have and continue to think about is re-engaging your community. So for entertainment, we have done a really fun event called Board Silly, where it's adult game night, and it's board games. And we are lucky here in Omaha is that we can get one-night liquor licenses, so we can serve and sell beer and wine, which has been really wonderful because people still love to go to nightclubs, bars, what have you. So that we know that is a meeting place. So if we're going to compete, let's make it a little bit different. So Board Silly, we have it one of our branches in Midtown. People come, they buy beer, and they meet other people, and they sit down and play. It could be Monopoly, it could be whatever it is, and they have the best time. And some of the comments that we've gotten from that is that I really enjoyed coming because sometimes bars are just too loud. This was really fun. And we've had people who have just moved into Omaha, and that is how they met their friends, basically, because it's a really safe place to sort of meet other people. You can come by yourself and instantly be playing, opera, whatever board game that we have. It could be apples to apples, and they're immediately making connections. Other connections I think about is book clubs and speed dating. We've done speed dating 3 times now, and we've had we have a success story. We have a couple that met 2 years ago, and they are getting married. So that's a wonderful connection that we've made. As far as community outreach, some things that we're still working on is reaching out to farmers. We have at least 4 farmers markets, if maybe 5, and we really want to set up a booth because I think that's like a really great way. And the only reason we probably haven't gone forward with that was like we just don't have enough people to sort of man the booth. But we definitely, that is something we want to make sure that we go. We'll sign up people for library cards. We'll have books about gardening, organic gardening, vegetables, how to make gazpacho, whatever it is. And that's a perfect way to market to that community. By the Big O is a business conference that's held every year at the Quest Center, so we go out there and reach out and tell them what business databases we have. And, of course, the Young Professional Summit, which is held every year. That's the group that I'm trying to make sure that I reach out to, and I personally tell them what we have as far as libraries that would be useful for them. And Bar Camp, which is an event held every year, put on by Silicon Prairie News, and it's basically like a mini TEDx, if you could think about that. Like people go, they sign up to talk 10 minutes and pitch whatever they want to pitch. So I could actually go into this bar camp and pitch about the library, and that's a great way to reach out to in an unusual way. Business outreach we still do to this day. We go to organizations that probably don't know that we have, because everybody that works in an organization probably has to do some kind of research. One of the things that we always plug, and they're always like surprised, is like, hey, we have the Omaha World Herald from 1984 forward. And that is huge because you can't even get, after 7 days, the Omaha World Herald no longer has it online. And you either are paying for it from them or you're coming to us because they know they can get it through Newsbank. So that's huge. And not only, you know, we talk about that, but we also have New York Times. And some of this, they've been blown away just from that information alone because it saves them time with doing research instead of going to the Omaha World Herald page of the New York Times or whatever kind of research that they're doing. And that's just one of the things, one of the databases that we talk about. Also, what I do is I issue library cards wherever I'm at. So I always have a stack in my handbag, and our circulation manager allows that to happen. So if I'm out at an event and I'm talking to somebody and I just met them, like, hey, you know, and they ask me, where do I work? I tell them the library, and I'm like, do you have a card? And they're like, no. And I said, do you have a driver's license with your current address? Yes. Well, let's sign you up right now. And I just issued the library card, and I didn't tell them to come to the library because it's a hardship for them. Why make it a hardship when I could do something right then and there? And that's been really, I do it all the time. I'm constantly bringing back library applications for our circulation manager. Other ways to reach out, of course, we know social media, but one of the interests that I have that I've been thinking about a lot is Pinterest. Pinterest is now the third most used social media platform, and I think that we as libraries really need to think how we reach out to them. And the library, Omaha Public Library, has a Pinterest board, and we have, I think, 8 boards, and we've barely just started with this. So we have probably close to 200 followers, which is amazing. So we know that we're connecting in interesting ways to people without them realizing it. But I've also discovered a new way for Pinterest to be sort of even more of a connection. So in Omaha, there's this neighborhood called Benson, and everybody loves Benson. It is hugely, they have a Benson, Nebraska page with 5,000 followers, and that's, to me, amazing. So I know the guy who runs the Benson, Nebraska page, and he just started a Pinterest board for Benson, Nebraska. Well, he added me to the board. So what does that mean for me? That means I can add stuff from our digital archives of Benson, like old photos from Benson, old postcards, anything that's really super interesting that it deals with Benson specifically. And I did. I pinned a really old picture of the Benson High School on his board, and it got lots of likes and lots of repins. So, and what does that do? That brings people back to Omaha Public Library because they are enamored with that old picture and they want to know, they want to find out more. So those are just some of the ways I think Pinterest can be really, really powerful for us, and not only for us to make boards, but to figure out how to co-collaborate with others with their boards, because we know that we're very good at, you know, getting information to the people, so let's use our skills. Let's see. Oops, sorry. So I want to go back to contextual outreach, and this is what I've all been talking about, so making it contextual to them and the future of libraries. So Seth Godin wrote an article probably, might have been a year and a half ago, and it really probably chapped a lot of librarians' hides. And so I'll just talk about a few of the pieces that he talked about. He said, you want to watch a movie? Netflix is a better librarian with a better library than any other library in the country. The Netflix library knows about every movie and what you want to see next, and they win. So, and it goes on to say, library is no longer a warehouse for dead books. Just in time for the information economy, the library ought to be the local nerve center for information. And I think about that all the time. And I really think about that if we think about co-working spaces, because when I was at Big Omaha, 2 weeks ago. They just had another conference, and I went and I talked to this lady who flew from D.C. to attend this conference, and we talked about where she worked. She was thinking about moving to Omaha. She wanted to know more about the vibe, and she said, I can no longer work in coffee places because it's irritating. She talked about being in co-working spaces, and she said, I think the library would be an amazing co-working space for people to sort of collaborate and be there, and that's what we can do. So think about that co-working space. That next library is a place where people can come together to do co-working, to coordinate, to invent projects, to innovate, and we're there to help them because we understand where that information is, and a lot of people have no idea, and we need to be proactive in making sure that you know about this, and that just sort of helps their innovation process. Because if we aren't participating in that, then people will just go ahead and create their own space, and that's the camp co-working space, and that's the meetups that happen, and all the other places that people sort of meet and exchange ideas. And those will always continue to happen, and I totally love it, and I actually try to attend as many as I can, but we need to make sure that the library can be part of that space too. So the big picture I think about a lot is making sure that you do a proper environmental scan. Know the new restaurants that are opening up. Know the new organizations that are starting. Know what the projects are. Know the people who are trying to innovate, whatever the entrepreneurs, the people who are trying to start things or connect with their community. Figure that out, and there's no great one place to find that because I think it's everywhere. So I think you just sort of have to keep your ear to the ground. The next one here, I have find the woo in your organization. I don't know if anybody has taken the Gallup Strengths Test, but it's a book. You get a code, and it kind of, I think there's like 40 different strengths, and it allows you, what it does, you answer a ton of questions, and it's kind of like Myers-Briggs. You figure out like what you're good at and what you're not. And what Gallup says is like, concentrate on your strengths. Who cares about your weaknesses? Go with your strengths. And one of the strengths is woo, which is called winning others over. So that's that super extrovert in your library. That's me. That's me. I'm the woo in Omaha Public Library. It means I have no problem going anywhere whatsoever, talking to people, advocating, being up in their business, whatever it is to advocate. You need to find that person and get them out there, because I think that's what they do well. And I know that a lot of introverts in the world, but find the people who are extroverted and want to get out. Get involved. One of the things we're thinking about doing and probably will implement soon is we have young professionals here. So we want people who work at the library to get involved with that community. So we're hoping that we can get our younger librarians involved in the young professional groups and other groups that are not necessarily library attached, because those are the groups that we need to infiltrate and advocate our services to. We recently adopted BiblioCommons, which is an amazing overlay of our catalog. So to me, it's just going to enamor more people to really search and get information out of our catalog. Before, I was amazed that anybody could manipulate it, but now we have a beautiful way that people can just get books, CDs, whatever. So that is just making it pretty. I always encourage people to discover stuff outside the library world. I know we all go to library conferences, and they're super important, absolutely. But find other conferences to go to. I've been always curious about the entrepreneurs, the innovators, and all of that. So I really love to go to the big Omahas or to Think Iowas, or where all this kind of bubbling, innovative stuff is happening, and listen to them talk. And when you sit there and listen to them, they'll just say, how could we connect to them? I mean, that's just the question. Don't think of how it connects to you. Think about how it connects to the library. And I think that's a problem that some of us had. For example, I I encouraged one of my colleagues to go to Young Professional Summit where there's a lot of speakers, and she said, I'm not young. There's no reason for me to go. Well, it's not about her. It's about the library. So go because you want to discover how to connect with that community. So remember that. Outreach, I think, is so hugely important. I just attended my neighborhood association meeting last night, and I told them, please let me know if I can ever speak, talk about, the events and programming at one of our branches, whatever it is. I'm happy to talk anytime, and they will absolutely take me up on that. And I kind of feel, just because I really, really, really love working at the library, is that it's part of who you are. So I call it 24-hour advocacy, because when I work out in the community, people know that I work at the library. I don't quit talking about it when I leave at 5 o'clock. I continue on that role, and I'm always plugging it. Even if I'm buying groceries through, Whole Foods line, I'll talk about the library if they ask. I don't, I'm not one of those crazy librarian salesmen, but I do talk about it if they ask, and I will give them interesting nuggets of information. So I think that's important to do. So,
hey, Amy, before you...
if you all have any questions.
Yes, Amy,
yeah.
Before you go on, if you go back to that previous slide, we did have a question. If you could explain the WOO one again.
Yes. Oh, yes. Gallup Strengths Test, which is the Gallup polls, so they have the Gallup Strengths Test, which is a book, and basically it identifies 40 traits that somebody could possibly have. Of that 40, you're going to have 5 that are like your strongest. So, for example, all librarians probably are going to have input. That's another Gallup strength. Input means information hoarder, basically. So that's my number 1 strength. My number 2 is woo. So it's interesting to see. So when I took the Gallup strengths, one of the things it told me I was an activator, which means I like to put ideas into action immediately, which really explains why I had a really hard time dealing with working at ProQuest toward the end, because the organization got bigger, there was more red tape, there was a lot more meetings, there was a lot more hurdles to work through in order to get something out the door, and that was impossible for me to deal with. So I'm not the person who will write up a description of a project and then implement it. I have an idea of a project and then I implement it, and I never write it down because that's not how I work. That's not my strength. So Gallup Strengths always says that you should always honor your 5 top strengths and not worry about your weaknesses. So if you're not a detailed person, don't be a detailed person. Who cares? So, I mean, I know that's kind of crazy to say in library world, but that person can be also the one that takes an idea and makes it actionable within seconds instead of a year. So when I talk about woo, that's winning others over. That means that person, which is me, will make it their job to make sure that they charm everybody around them and make them love the library or themselves or whatever it is. But that's a very extroverted person. So that's that person who's always going to be out and about championing the library. So I hope that explains it.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, good. So yes, I would love to hear any other questions. Anybody can find me anywhere. So I'm on Facebook. I have a podcast about the cultural creativity of Omaha, Pinterest board, LinkedIn, and I have lots of presentations up on Prezi.
Yes, does if anybody have any questions, comments, ideas for how to do this, or how you've been doing these same kind of things that Amy was talking about in your libraries?
Yeah, I'm actually curious if anybody's ever done any co-working spaces at their library.
Yeah, go ahead and type whatever you want to into the questions section of the GoToWebinar interface. We're monitoring that here, so we can see anything you have to say. And just while we're seeing if anybody has anything, I just want to say, as Amy was going through her session, I was taking, when we do our recordings for NCompass Live, we put up any links, presentations, whatever people have. So I have been bookmarking in our Commission Delicious account a lot of the websites and groups and organizations that were mentioned, so you'll be able to access that afterwards. And if Amy will send me her PowerPoint, I hadn't asked her about that earlier.
Oh, yes, will do.
We'll post that up to our SlideShare account as well, so you'll be able to refer back to all of her slides as well afterwards when we get the recording up. Doesn't look like anybody has anything to say.
Well, thank you.
I'll try to figure out how to use all this great information that you gave them. All these resources, yeah.
And anybody has any questions, feel free to, get a hold of me. I should have put my email up there too, but it's amather@omahalibrary.org. Always willing to help.
Oh, we do have a comment. Jessica Chamberlain up in Northeast says, "This was great. Thanks, Amy."
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. All right, it looks like, yeah, if nobody does have any questions or anything, we can, nothing urgent come in, wrap it up for the morning. I'm going to take back control from Amy here, and there we go. Great. Well, thank you very much, Amy, for this session. This was something that I'd seen Amy present previously at a conference, one of our spring meetings earlier this year, and thought it was a great session that we wanted to share beyond just the people that came here to in person and get it out there onto NCompass Live. So thank you very much, Amy, for presenting for us today, and thank you everyone for attending. Get you muted now. So thank you everyone for attending today's NCompass Live. I hope you will join us next week when it will be our monthly Tech Talk with Michael Sowers, the Technology Innovation Librarian here at the Nebraska Library Commission. Once a month he comes on the show and talks about new tech of the day. And has sometimes interviews, people has joined him. And this month he's talking to people from the Chesapeake Central Library who are doing a project called ePublish or Bust, trying to publish their own, self-publish a book into ebook, and we'll see where they're at with that and how it's going and what that's all about next Wednesday morning. So there's nothing else. Doesn't look like anybody has any urgent questions or things at the end. Thank you very much for attending, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.